Verbs show action or a state of being. However, another definition could be action verbs describe what the subject of the sentence does, whereas state of being verbs describe what the subject of the sentence is. Let's start with action verbs. Action verbs describe what the subject of the sentence does, did, is doing, or will do. There are two kinds of action verbs: physical and mental.
Think.
Physical actions are actions and motions that we can physically do with our bodies.
He flipped without hesitation. The guy hopped over the railing.
Mental actions are invisible and can only be done in a person's mind and brain.
He believed he was lost. He learned more about cheese.
Now we'll be moving away from action verbs and on to helping verbs. This is where things start to get a little tricky. Helping verbs are neither action verbs nor state of being verbs. Instead, they exist to help the main verb that they're attached to. More specifically, helping verbs help the main verb of the sentence by giving more information about when the main verb happened or the possibility of the main verb happening. There are only 23 helping verbs, and the best way to learn them is to memorize them. To memorize the 23 helping verbs easily, sing along with the song that goes to the melody of Jingle Bells. Helping verbs, there are 23. Am is are, was and were, being, been and be. Have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, and would. There are 5 more helping verbs: may, might, must, can, could. Warning, warning, warning. Here is a second version of the song. However, make sure to sing quietly and without any excitement at all, as it will help you avoid the embarrassment of someone catching you enjoying a song about grammar. You have been warned.
These are the helping verbs. It's about time you learn 23 of them. Let's go. Am is are, was and were, being, been and be. Have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, and would, may, might, must, can, could. Am is are, was and were, being, been and be. Have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, and would, may, might, must, can, could. Am is are, was and were, being, been and be. Have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, and would, may, might, must, can, could. These are the helping verbs. It's about time you learn 23. Am is are, was and were, being, been and be. Have, has, had, do, does, did, shall, will, should, and would, may, might, must, can, could. These are the helping verbs. It's about time you learn 23.
A third way to remember the 23 helping verbs is the acronym CHAD B SWIM. The numbers show how many helping verbs start with that letter. It's a nice way to organize them and make sure you have all 23 helping verbs when you can use a cheat sheet or when you need to name them all for a test. Now let's see some examples of helping verbs alongside their main verbs.
I am walking through the forest. He was going to see his grandmother. There is banging on the underside of the bridge. A troll must be living under the bridge. Grandmother can wait. I shall make the troll my friend. He did receive the troll's friendship.
Up to 3 helping verbs can be used at once.
I should not have been going anywhere near that bridge, but I was met with a pleasant surprise.
Now it's time to move on to the more challenging linking verbs, which are also known as state of being verbs. It's important that you know linking verbs and state of being verbs are just 2 different ways to say the same thing. Now for the full definition of linking verbs. Linking verbs describe or identify what the subject of the sentence is. They are called linking verbs because they link the subject of the sentence with a noun, pronoun, or adjective that complements or gives more information about the subject. This word that gives more information about the subject is called the subject complement. Firstly, to understand why linking verbs are called state of being verbs, we should imagine someone in a state of meditation. During meditation, the goal of the meditating person is to do absolutely nothing. Their goal is to sit still, without movement and without thinking, and just be. They are not in a state of action. They are not in a state of thinking. They are in a state of just being or just existing. For example, I am Brent. The word am is the verb in the sentence. There is no physical or mental action. He is just being himself. Being himself is not something that requires an action to do. It's just something that he is. If linking verbs show us what the subject of the sentence is, then we can see that the word am links the subject of the sentence, I, to the subject complement, Brent. In this sentence, the word I is the same thing as Brent. Thus, the word am has successfully linked the two words, I and Brent, together. Now let's actually look at some linking verbs.
My name is Robot Box. I am lonely, so lonely. But alas, I will be lonely forever.
Don't feel sad.
What is that?
I am Curly Cone. I seem pointed at first, but I shall become your new best friend.
A new best friend? Yay!
Trash Can Man could not be happier for Robot Box.
There are three verbs that will always be linking verbs and can never be action verbs. These three verbs are be, become, and seem. This includes other forms of the same word like be, am, is, are, was, become, became, will become, and seem, seems, and has seemed.
And now for an exclusive interview with pro skateboarder Scooter Skate Scott.
How long have you been boarding a skate?
I became a skate god when I was 2 years old.
And how does it feel to ride your skating board?
I am unstoppable when I shred the sled.
Do you have a message to the parents who don't want their kiddos to try board blading?
Totally. I may seem reckless and my tricks are mad ill sick, but swagaboarding has become a science. They should be the scoot before giving it the boot.
Now we'll look at linking verbs that could also be action verbs depending on how they're used. Verbs that are related to the five senses could be linking verbs because we can use our senses to describe what something is. These words are feel, look, smell, sound, taste, etc.
Hopping across the rocks feels death-defying. The birds sound happy. The stream looks calm. The water smells musky. Falling rocks sound like failure.
And lastly, there are a few that seem very random, so it's important that you know what they look like. These words are grow, prove, remain, turn, stay, get, and appear. However, if you're not sure, there are two tests to see if you have a linking verb on your hands. The first is the equal sign test. When using a linking verb, we are describing what the subject is. Therefore, we could also replace that linking verb with the word equals to see if it still makes sense. For example,
I am desperate for more coffee. I remain calm. I grow impatient. I am screaming in my mind.
nope, that's not a linking verb because it's attached to a main action verb, screaming. The main action verb can't be an equal sign because it wouldn't make sense. I am equals in my mind doesn't make sense.
It is time to order.
Can I get a grande black dark roast, please?
Yeah, a grande black dark roast. What else for you?
That's gonna be it.
It's gonna be $2.75.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel grateful to receive her goddess's daily blessing. Her coffee tastes hot like the sun.
Ow.
Now that you've gotten the hard stuff out of the way, here's a quick little lesson on transitive and intransitive verbs. The way our sentences are built in the English language usually follows a certain order. Subject first, then verb, and lastly the object. This subject-verb-object order is called SVO for short. The subject does the verb to the object. Transitive and intransitive have nothing to do with action or state of being verbs. Transitive verbs are just verbs that transfer the energy and action of the verb to an object. The object that the energy and action is transferred onto is called the direct object. He drew a picture. She sprayed him.
Okay, I'm gonna get hypothermia. No.
Intransitive verbs are the opposite. They do not transfer energy to an object, and they do not need an object for the sentence to make sense.
You should stop.
He danced. He speaks.
Quack, 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 quack.
Caw. Wee. Don't go.
You don't go.
Friends.
All right, like and subscribe. He's soaking wet. He did it for y'all.
And the grammar. I did it for the grammar.
For the grammar, for the verbs. All right, bye.
Subscribe, please.